Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to tonight's show. I've not been with you for a long time, guys. I'm sorry about that. But, I thought I'd do a special show for you. So I'd like to introduce you to your special guests tonight, Colleen. Now, you used to work in the Lizzie Borden House, so we've got a treat going there. We've got Drew, paranormal. We all know Drew. And we also know Linda down here.
Hello there.
Now, guys, I'm just going to talk to Colleen. I'm going to ask her to tell you all a wee bit about the Lizzie Borden House and what she did, and then we'll start asking questions, and Drew can start too. And
can I just point out, Christopher, that I've got a cat ball behind me, guys, okay, just in case anyone wants to talk.
A cat ball. That sounded so wrong there. You've got a cat ball.
Christopher's idea. Look that way. Christopher's idea. Blame him. And I've got a key too.
But anyway, guys, thank you for coming tonight, guys. And
pleasure.
Without further ado, Drew, could you please, Colin, tell us a wee bit about yourself and the Lizzie Borden House?
Well, I was a tour guide there for about 5 years, on and off, mostly on. And it's a really unique experience. I'm not sure how many of your guests will know who Lizzie Borden was, but she was accused in Fall River, Massachusetts, of murdering her father and stepmother in the house that I was a tour guide at. It was the murder house. And so we have a very active place there. There's a lot that goes on there. And the spirits that are there are not all directly related to the case, the murder case.
Yeah.
The murder actually was committed with a hatchet, or they call it some sharp instrument. We're pretty sure it was a hatchet, just because of stuff that went on during her trial. She was accused of the murders. However, she was acquitted as well. And it happens to be my fairly unpopular opinion that she did not commit the murders.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
See, I agree with that. I think it was the uncle.
See, that's a strange thing. Did they ever find a murder weapon?
Okay, so here's the thing. It's possible that the murder weapon was found in 1893, the year after the murders occurred. There were 2 young boys who were playing around with a ball, and the ball landed on what would have been the carriage house of the house on the next block over.
Right.
So they went up there to get their ball, and they found a hatchet up there that still had what they call silver gilting.
Right.
And that was the fancy pretty paint that they would put on the hatches, and it wore off generally within like the first or second use of that tool. It's not very well known that in Mrs. Borden's autopsy report, they did find a piece of silver gilt in one of her wounds.
She's been a kind of new hatchet then.
Yes, and there is rumor that Lizzie shoplifted a hatchet on the day prior to the murders. That can't be documented one way or the other, as far as I remember.
Set her up to make it look as if she was the murderer. They would use something like that she was accused of stealing. Do you know what I mean? So
she was accused of a lot of shoplifting. Actually, there are several stories about it.
Isn't it?
I did not know that she was accused of shoplifting.
There were several stories about that.
That's actually really interesting.
But so this hatchet that they found, unfortunately, because it was the year after she had already been acquitted, the hatchet was lost to history. We don't have it.
Right.
But we absolutely know that happened.
It makes you wonder where it went then. I mean,
it's so convenient, though, that the police were away to a prawn thing or something away in a different part of the county, isn't it? I mean, they had the day off, essentially. The police
They did.
That's really strange as well.
About 3/4 of the police department was actually out on a picnic that they had every year.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, and I'll tell you, the forensics in this case, I mean, forensics was just in its infancy back then. We didn't even have fingerprinting in America yet.
Right.
And so the forensics that they did have were absolutely botched beyond all measure and reason, because they were letting street people come in and out of the house to see where the murder happened and this and that.
Could you imagine?
The bodies were moved before the autopsy photos were taken.
Could you imagine that now? Could you imagine that nowadays? The house would be sealed off. There'd be fingerprints, DNA taken. There'd be people in there going through it with a fine tooth comb.
They wouldn't let anybody out or in.
Then
nowadays.
Then they would go and look at CCTV cameras to see if there's any evidence of us picking that axe up.
But unfortunately, we didn't have any of that back then.
No, we didn't.
That's
I never knew. I never knew.
Sorry, Chris.
When you go through.
So who do you think's the most dominant spirit in the house? Do you think it's the 2 wee kids in the attic? Do you think it is family members of the Bordens?
The dominant spirit in that house is Andrew Borden.
Right.
He is absolutely. Mrs. Borden is there. And it's funny because, poor Mrs. Borden throughout history, people have kind of described her as a very unlikable person.
Oh.
And a lot of that came from Lizzie and Emma, Lizzie and her older sister. But the experiences that I've had with Mrs. Borden in the house are very positive. She checks on the guests. She checks on the guests. I actually had a blanket pulled up over me in the middle of the night one night.
Oh, cold.
And I woke up in the morning going, I don't remember putting this blanket on me. Okay,
That's really interesting.
So, but Mr. Borden, people come in and they contact spirit, and Mrs. Borden will be there, and the instant, pretty much, it's very hard to talk to her because the instant he realizes it's like he's in another part of the house.
Yeah.
And his spirit will just come in and take everything over. And then after that, all it becomes is aggression and cussing.
See, I actually thought about this. Right? I've been researching the Lizzie Borden House after talking to you, Colleen, actually. It makes you wonder, do you think it was possible that Mr. Borden, right, murdered his own wife and then somebody killed him because of this?
No, because he was out and then
but was he dead first?
He was out and then he came home.
No, and then he came home. That's the thing.
She was murdered first.
Who found the victims?
She was murdered first,
the neighbor
upstairs in the guest room.
See?
And he was murdered about an hour and a half later. So she was murdered at about 9:30. He was murdered between, I believe, 10:30 and 11:15. He came home early that day, which was unusual for him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because he was sick, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mutton.
Yeah.
The mutton stew that they'd been serving for I don't know how many days in August with no icebox.
Oh.
Or in an icebox, but it's going to go over quick.
Did they drink? Did they consume alcohol at all?
No, he was a big old teetotaler.
Right.
We still have trouble at the house with people bringing in liquor. For a long time, we had a steadfast rule that you could not bring liquor into the house.
Oh, wow.
Because they would come in and they would bring liquor in and they'd leave, and we had to stay there and deal with Mr. Borden being all pissed off about it.
Wow.
The house would get very, very active.
I would just like to point out that Colleen had a massive orb, just went right back behind you, behind that bookshelf.
Did I really?
Yes, you did.
Okay.
It'd be light flare.
Yeah, that is light flare because I've been watching it.
Oh, you know what it is? Look.
Yes, I've been watching it for a while.
That's all right. I'm starting to get worried.
Unfortunately, I don't have decent lighting right now for anything. So, I do get that. It's right there. I can see it.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
And there's another one right above it. You can see about half of it.
Right.
Okay, that's light flare.
See when the murder was committed, who actually found the victims? I take it Lizzie Borden. Was she found in that? Who found them first?
Here's what happened. Mr. Borden was actually found first.
Right.
Because he was downstairs on the family room sofa, or the what would they call it? The sitting room. It wasn't the fancy parlor. It was the family room. And he was on that sofa. Lizzie claimed that she had gone out to the barn and been out of the house when the murder occurred. The maid was upstairs resting
Right.
because she was also sick. Lizzie says
Right.
she come back into the house and found Mr. Borden. She raised the alarm. And
Right.
then once the police got there and a couple of other people got there, Lizzie actually said, I wonder where Mrs. Borden is. I haven't seen her.
Right.
And so she
Very
sent Bridget
suspicious,
and
though.
and the neighbor, Alice Russell, the neighbor, upstairs to find Mrs. Borden, to look for Mrs. Borden. And it was actually Bridget who first spotted Mrs. Borden. She was the first one up the stairs. And the way the house is set up, as you're coming up those stairs into that guest room, you get to a certain point and you can literally turn your head to the left and see right under the bed in that guest room.
Right.
And Mrs. Borden's body was on the other side of the bed, between the bed and the bureau.
Right.
So Bridget was actually the first to see her dead.
Right.
And Bridget was known as Maggie, wasn't she? Because the previous maid was a Maggie.
That's correct.
Right,
Yes. And
Yeah, Lizzie and Emma couldn't be arsed to learn her real name, so they called her Maggie.
That's
I think
right.
they were just jealous of her because she was about their age. Objective. The lady, the girls felt threatened by her and just didn't like her because she was
By
her
Abby?
stepmother.
By Abby. I believe that there was some animosity, yes, towards Abby Borden, and I think that she didn't deserve it.
No.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of this was about money.
Yeah,
It was about money. Lizzie hated the house that they lived in. You know, they didn't have really running water. They had a water pump, a hand pump. They didn't have electric lights. He insisted on using.
Quite hard for a girl not to have the toilet and things. I mean, I know they had made a big deal about that in the house, about the chamber pots and things.
They did use chamber pots, but there was also a privy downstairs in the basement. You know, but they mostly it was chamber pots, especially for the middle of the night, because the house is set up. You wouldn't want to go down into the basement in the middle of the night in that house.
No.
It would just
No chance.
You'd trip over something.
I mean, can I ask you something, Colleen?
Sure.
Who do you think? Right, this is just hypothetically. Who do you think maybe murdered them?
I believe that John Morse had a lot more. He was the uncle who came to visit the Wednesday night, just like popped in without so much as a toothbrush.
Yep.
I believe that he had a lot more to do with it than we know.
Yeah.
Yep.
I can even get myself to buy that he committed one of the murders. I believe that he killed Mrs. Borden.
Really?
Because he would have had time to do it before he left the house that morning. At which point, from the time he left the house to the time he comes back, after everything's said and done, this man has the most ironclad alibi I have ever heard from any criminal. He knew. He rode he rode the trolley car. He remembered the number on the badge of the conductor.
Exactly.
He remembered 6 priests who were on the trolley car with him, and those priests actually testified that they saw him there. So I'm thinking he was setting up this alibi so that he couldn't be held responsible for Mr. Borden's murder.
Yes,
and
there's
because
too
they were
many
so
details.
close together, I think he hired somebody.
Yeah.
I think that he hired somebody to come in and kill Mr. Borden. And there may have been a couple of different reasons why, his motive, why he would have had a motive to want them both dead.
Maybe he hired somebody to kill Mrs. Borden, but he came home early.
See, I thought maybe him and Lizzie were in it together.
See, that's what I'm trying to say. What happens if he came home early and caught the person about to do it?
That's a solid theory that is always talked about. I like my theory of John Morse, and then somebody else came in and left. That person came in and left and murdered Mr. Borden while John Morse was out of the house, so he had a good alibi.
Yeah, definitely.
Was he written in any will, John Morse? Was he?
We have never found a will.
Right.
We've never found a will for him. Lizzie said that she had no idea of him making a will at that particular time, but there was in the kitchen stove. Somebody found ashes in the shape of what looked like a rolled up piece of paper.
Oh, that's interesting.
Maybe Lizzie did that because she didn't want the stepmother getting anything.
That's one of the theories that is out there, that the girls were worried that Mr. Borden would change his will and leave Abby everything, and they would get nothing. And if the order that the murders were committed in kind of plays into this, because if Mr. Borden had been a widow for as much as 2 seconds, the girls would have inherited everything.
Yeah.
If he had left, if Abby was the second one murdered, she would have inherited almost everything, and they would have been out in the cold. That's what the law stated in those days. So it was imperative, if this was their motive, it was imperative that she die first and that they'd be able to tell that.
Right.
And they were able to tell that. Her blood was more congealed than his was.
Because that's how they used to tell the deaths in the days, didn't it? It wasn't really
body temperature and the way the blood looked. They didn't have a whole lot to go on.
Yep.
Back in those days,
There's
forensically.
Still a spot in the cellar where you can look up with one of the torches and still see the bloodstones. It was in that YouTuber's video. Do you remember seeing that part, Dobie, in Josh Explores video?
I think I do.
Where the ceiling, you look through the ceiling, there's a bit in the ceiling that you look up and you can still see the blood spot.
Let me
There's a question for Scottish.
I do have a question. I'm so sorry. I should have mentioned that. The murders occurred on Thursday, August 4th in 1892.
Right.
1892.
That's a long time ago.
Very long time ago. But it still generates a lot of interest.
Doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. I'm surprised they haven't made like a massive movie.
It makes you wonder how many other murders are out there, doesn't it? That could be really just as bad. Because I dare say there's a few.
Well, it makes you wonder that. I mean, whoever murdered, did they go on to murder other people?
Probably not. Probably not. I believe that this person, whoever it was, or people, it was definitely personal.
Yeah.
I don't think it was some random axe murderer. Although that area did have a lot of them.
Yes.
You know, there were a couple. There was one that got committed in 1893 that people were like, oh, well, maybe that's Lizzie. Maybe Lizzie did that too. But they found out. Huh?
No, when you go finish, I'm sorry.
No, that's all right. And that was found out not to be true. And there was one prior to these murders, that when Mr. and Mrs. Borden were murdered, they wanted to blame the Borden's murders on this other gentleman who had committed that murder.
Right.
And what they found out was that
other axe-murder house, isn't there? What do they call it? The other axe-murder house.
There's another one. I can't remember.
Valiska? Are you talking about Valiska, Iowa? Yes.
That's it. No, but what I was going to say is, was there no a murder next door?
There was. There was a Borden murder next door. There was a lady by the name of Eliza Borden.
Right.
And she was married to a gentleman named Ladawick, who was Andrew Borden's, I always get this wrong, please forgive me, I believe cousin. Distant.
Yeah.
And about 25 years prior to the Borden murders, Eliza had just given birth to her third child.
Right.
And one day she took all three children out to a cistern that was at the time very close to the Borden backyard. Mm-hmm. And she threw these children down the cistern. Mm-hmm. Two of them passed away. One of them did survive. But Eliza went back into the house and killed herself at the same time. So we actually believe that those children are hanging around
Oh yeah.
At 92 2nd Street, because it was a Borden family. They it was a relative.
Yeah, it makes you wonder. I mean, the land itself. I mean,
And
to have something like that happen.
Exactly.
I mean, that's
right.
violent.
Right. The thought, I know people who've got different opinions on it as well.
Yeah.
And I find myself wondering whether or not it was the badness of the land that caused the bad things to happen on the land,
Right.
or whether it was the other way around.
Yeah.
That the land somehow went bad. And you're going to hear a lot.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, didn't Lizzie eventually move away and live with a companion somewhere after she was acquitted from the trial? Did she not go and live with a companion?
She moved to a house still in Fall River that's called Maplecroft. And she did have a very, very good friend for several years, an actress by the name of Nance O'Neill.
Yes.
And Emma also moved into that house, by the way. Initially, it was the two sisters there. And Nance O'Neill was, she was an actress. And back in those days, actors and actresses were kind of on a par with ladies of the evening in terms of social acceptance. I'm trying to be PC here.
Ladies of the night,
Ladies of the night, the red light district people.
Yeah.
Actors were very much a part of that, were considered that social stratus way down low. And so Emma became very disheartened living at Maplecroft with Nance O'Neill always being around.
Right.
So Emma moved away. Emma moved to New Hampshire and lived out the rest of her life there.
Right.
And the odd thing is, there was just about 10 years between Lizzie and Emma in birth, and it was just about 10 years, very close between 10 days, there we go, between them and death.
Oh,
that's crazy, isn't it? As if they had a connection of some kind.
That is just crazy.
You could break your brain thinking about it. You really could.
What was it you said to me in the other live we'd done? Was it last week? You said the cellar had maybe like a darker entity in it, didn't you?
Well, his face is meant to show in the cellar. If you look at it a certain way, Mr. Borden's face, you can see it. You take a picture.
Oh, okay. I know what I know what you're talking about. Actually, I know what both of you are talking about. So, Drew, that is actually, I'm going to debunk this right now. You will see pictures of a part of the basement where, yes, it absolutely looks like you can see a face with a beard and all of that. That is, as much as I hate to say it,
it's just pareidolia.
That is simply the way the bricks are laid in that, and the paint and the paint.
It makes good for the tourists, though, doesn't it?
What's that?
It makes good for the tourists, though, because
it does, and I made sure to always show them that. But I would tell them we've debunked this.
It's just the way the brickwork is.
But has the cellar not got like a darker energy tied to it?
Yes,
that's what I was getting.
I believe it does. I believe it does. There is, occasionally you will get these random, horrible, horrible smells in that basement. It's like rotting meat and all that. And there's a lot of debate about whether, I hate saying the D word because I'm so sick of hearing it on TV.
Yes.
Everything's a demon now. Sorry, I had to say it.
If it knocks out or something, that's that. You've got a demon infestation. But that's fine.
That's a good one. Well, I say demon anymore, we'll say domand.
I don't believe that's what it is. I actually believe it's an elemental, and I think it's been there a long, long time.
Well,
I think it's been there a long time.
I actually, after that episode I did, that live on Parachills, I went and had a wee look and we were looking at it, and there is something to do with Native American burial grounds where the house was.
Right.
There actually are.
Yeah,
I believe there actually were.
There is stuff.
And it's funny because you hear Native American burial grounds so much.
Yes.
But I think that's probably right.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to go back and look again.
It makes you wonder if it's maybe put like a curse that's cursed
What
the
was
family
Mr.
throughout the
Borden's
years.
job?
Initially, he started off as a cabinet maker,
Right.
and then he was an undertaker for a while.
Right.
And so he didn't have anything to do with planning. He just planned the funerals and provided the furniture. He didn't have anything to do with anything.
With actual burial.
Yeah.
There was no morgue in the basement. That did not happen.
I was just about to say.
No, that did not happen. He was simply an undertaker for a while. Where he made his fortune was in banking and real estate.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and that was how when his life ended, that's what he was doing.
Yeah. So he must have been worth a pretty penny then. He must have been in the days equivalent to these days. How rich would you say he was?
At the time of his death in 1892, Andrew was worth about $350,000 to $500,000.
Wow.
Today's money, that's about $12 million.
Wow.
Maybe a little more now.
Right, that is some serious money to murder someone over nowadays.
I haven't done the math on it for a couple of years, so my estimate could be low.
I think you're right. I think it's round about that. I mean,
yeah.
Good God.
So they could have modernised the house for the girls if they'd wanted to,
yes.
to make it more comfortable. So I suppose there was a bit of resentment there for that reason.
Yes, there was.
Wow.
Yes, there was. They had enough money at the time, even though they were among the less fortunate of that branch of the Borden family. He still could have put in electricity. He could have put in, a telephone. They didn't even have a telephone.
Wow.
When the police were called, it was from the telephone across the street. There was a stable.
I think that was.
And they had a phone.
Yeah.
They had a phone. And so the neighbor went and called them.
That is shocking. You think with that kind of money, I know you could have...
Scottish.
He's Scottish out looking. I mean, you think with that kind of money, I'm just shocked. But that's...
Normandy.
Must have been a very
that's bad though.
person.
I mean, do you think he did that out of badness? Just didn't get them their own house?
I'm sorry?
Do you think he did that out of badness? Just didn't get the girls their own house? Or he was a penny pincher?
Yes, he was a very frugal gentleman is the word that I use, because I got in trouble my first day of work for using another word, and I will never use it again to describe Mr. Borden.
Yeah.
But I think he was just a very frugal man, and he was afraid of losing the family fortune. I think he was very, very frightened of losing it, because it had been lost once. His father, I believe, had kind of piddled away the family fortune and died very poor.
So he feared poverty.
And so I think he feared that.
That's...
I think he feared that.
It's shocking having that amount of money. And, I've met people like that in real life. I've met people that have got 20, 30, 40 million pounds and they live in a small house. Yep. And they don't like spending money. And you think to yourself, think of the things you could do with that.
Why would you do that?
And it's madness. It truly is.
It is.
Here a question. Has anybody ever been attacked seriously? I mean, really seriously in the house? At the house? Yeah.
I'm not sure what level of physical interaction you're calling serious.
Say scratches,
yes,
grabbed at the throat.
I grabbed at the throat. Yeah. That was me.
Right.
That was me. I got to do that one. Right. But yes, we've had people scratched. Right. We've had violent altercations with furniture, moving around a picture frame.
So there's been poltergeist activity in the house.
Yes, there has.
Right. Has the house ever been tried to be cleansed with like a priest or like a minister or such?
To the best of my knowledge, it has not.
Right.
And I think that there were reasons that those decisions were made.
Right.
I'm not sure what, I'm not sure. I don't know for sure whether or not. I know that we've had clients come in, people who were staying over,
Yes.
or people who have come to functions at the house that have multiple ghost hunting groups where they can, and I know that there are folks who have thought that they were going to cleanse the house with a little bit of sage and some holy water, and it becomes a very bad night when that happens. When people do that,
force the spirits out.
Like,
then
please stop doing this. You get to go home.
It's their home, isn't it?
Would you say there was more likelihood that women will be attacked than men?
Yes.
So men
Absolutely.
are basically safer, in theory. And
men are safer there for the most part. Yeah, it's women. He was very well known not to like women.
Right.
He did not care for women.
I mean, when did you say it was? It was 93?
92.
Right, 1892. In their times, women weren't allowed to even vote then.
Exactly.
I mean, and women were kind of classed as like the lower, which is terrible, right? And and men in the days were like, well, they were the ones in charge.
Absolutely.
So he must still be living in that era, thinking, oh, there's a woman. She's my servant kind of type. That's what's going through him.
Yeah.
Whereas,
sure.
I think so. Yeah. I think so. I can agree with that.
I wonder what would happen if you did do an exorcism in the house and get rid of him.
Was there other any extended family in that area, or was it just basically Lizzie, the father, the sister, and the other sister, and the wife? Or
there was no
there aunties and uncles or anything around.
No, not. I mean, they had some distant relatives who lived up on the hill, but and the hill is like the Highlands, the fancy neighborhood in Fall River.
Yeah.
Because the Bordens lived in what was predominantly a business type of area, low income type of area, they didn't associate with their wealthier counterparts.
Right.
Up in the Highlands, they were looked down on. They were looked down on.
Mm-hmm. They were the rich people who didn't spend money.
So they
exactly, and that was something that Lizzie.
Anyway, then, so they were a rich family anyway before they even started to grow their own business.
Yeah, right. And Lizzie very much resented. Lizzie, most of all, really resented not having that house on the hill because he could have afforded it.
Right.
He could have afforded it.
Yeah.
He was very frugal.
Frugal's not the word.
I will never use that other word. Talking about him, never ever.
Yeah.
Never again.
I believe that he can find me and whack me upside the head if he wants to. I'm never saying that again.
Is that why I attacked you? Because you said that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think he's did that to a few of the tour guides there, hasn't he? Somebody else get bitten. Get something in their leg when they said he was whatever.
So he's actually
nice with his money.
So he's actually left the house and he's went to their people's homes and attacked them. Has he done that?
No, in the house when they say it.
No, I the only reason I said that is because I have a love-hate relationship with him. I just kind of feel like
I can see
he knows where I am.
Right. I can see why.
What experiences have you had, Colleen, with the spirits in the house?
I've had some very, very gentle, really nice experiences with the kids, with the two kids, Holder and oh my gosh, what was her name? I think it was Eliza and Holder.
Right.
Really nice experiences with them. Others have not been great. I have been scratched there. Right. I was hosting an event.
Right.
And we had, a bunch of people in, and I went outside to have a cigarette, and we had just had a kind of a big kerfuffle with, what was happening. And I went outside to have a cigarette and kind of just like chill my nerves a little bit. And I realized that my stomach was hurting.
Right.
And I looked at it, and I had scratches right across my stomach.
Wow.
What age was Lizzie Borden when she died?
When she died?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Okay, I want to say 67.
Right.
She was no old then.
Aye, but in the days it was different because the healthcare systems, we didn't have like antibiotics, didn't we? No, until the
Right.
early.
She died from complications from having her gallbladder removed.
Right. Where did she die? In the hospital, or did she die in a house?
No, she died at Maplecroft. She died in the house.
Oh, so interesting. I'd love to get in there then.
So, has anybody ever done an investigation in there?
When the owners of the house did acquire, Leanne and her partner did acquire Maplecroft, and they did allow investigations. There's actually been an episode of Kindred Spirits.
I think I've heard it, but I've never watched it. I've never watched it yet.
The Lizzie Borden episode of that show is absolutely fascinating.
I maybe need to do that.
And I'm acquainted with the folks who do that show. And I really believe that what they came up with and the reasons for the activity in the Lizzie Borden in Maplecroft, where she lived afterwards, are completely valid. I agree with their theory.
Right.
You know, and they have.
What investigators have you all met then, Colleen, that's came to the house?
Oh, do tell us. I want to hear all the famous people. Let's go.
It's funny because I haven't met a whole lot of famous people. I unfortunately was not around when the Ghost Adventures guys were there.
Right.
But there are some pretty well known groups now. Okay, I got one. There's a group called Scared. Literally, they call themselves Scared at the time.
I've heard of them.
And Brian Teno was a member of Scared, and he is now on Haunted Collector with John Zaffis.
Right. I thought I recognized.
So I got to meet him. I'm trying to think of some of the other. Tim Weisberg, like I said, is really well known for his investigations with Lizzie's, and now he's everywhere doing things. He was I believe he was an associate producer for a few episodes of Ghost Adventures.
Yes, he was.
It was just my rotten luck that the couple of days that they were there, I wasn't able to get there.
Oh, you wanted to meet Zach,
so
didn't you?
I didn't get to meet Zach.
Oh,
Now, I'm. It would have been nice to meet him, but I think he's gone in kind of a different direction over the last few years.
He's very
out to prove the darker stuff now.
He's out to prove demonic.
And
darker stuff
he's out to prove it with every case now, and I just can't buy into that. I can't buy into it. I don't think that every entity is evil.
No, I think some of them can be saved, but that's.
It is what it is.
It is.
Yeah,
but you've got to remember, fear sells. It sells. If you put a ghost program on about this haunted house and nothing really happens, maybe a wee door creaks open, it's not going to get many views.
It's not going to get.
If somebody's got to be getting attacked,
still good.
Sin and holy water everywhere, and folk are rolling about screaming.
And we do get a lot of people who will walk in there and instantly start provoking.
Oh yeah, that's something
because they're looking for. And I'll tell you what, whatever it is, the elemental in the basement, if you provoke, it's gonna, especially if you're in the basement. Here's the strange thing about that thing: it doesn't manifest in any part of the rest of that house, except now and again in the kitchen. It stays pretty much downstairs in the cellar. Those are my experiences.
It's probably something to do with Indian burial ground, because that's going into the ground down below.
Yeah, and of course, that little hole that happens to be there is perfect for it.
Oh yeah, dark and darkness. That's what they like.
Especially if it's like a soil floor, where it can get in and out easily.
Is it a soil floor in the basement?
It's no. Wait a minute. Right. Okay, most of it is not. Most of it is cement. It was soil at the time. Right. In 1892, I believe it was soil. Yeah.
Right. So, see, that's a bad sign. That is a bad sign. I mean, it makes you wonder that's down there feeding off all the terror and you imagine what the murders fed that and probably made it worse.
Especially all the tourists and things still gone there. I mean, they'll get especially the ones that they get scared. That thing's going to feed off of all that.
Has there ever been
get worse?
See, guys, has guys ever been pinned like against the wall and attacked or anything like that, or grabbed by the neck? Men?
Not that I'm aware of. Now, mind you, there are a lot of people in and out of that place, and I've been gone for a few years.
Right.
But as far as I know, it was mostly women who were physically touched.
It'd be interesting for you to go back, Colleen, and see if you think it's got worse or better. Or...
I would give anything to go back there.
You don't know. You might be going back there one day.
I would give anything to go back and do an actual real investigation.
You need to do that. That could be your mission for next year.
Oh, don't worry. Me and Drew come out and we'll send Drew into the basement.
For sure. I'd love to go to Lizzie Borden House.
It would be an honor to go there with some Parachileans and some of. It would be so much fun.
You just need to speak to Chris and see what you can do. You know.
Yeah.
That place. Of course, there was the doctor next door too, wasn't there?
There was a doctor next door, and there was a doctor across the street. The doctor across the street was their family doctor. Right. Although he didn't see a lot of business from them because, again, Mr. Borden, very frugal. On the day prior to the murders, when everybody was feeling really sick, Mrs. Borden did call. She went over and had the doctor come across the street, and Mr. Borden said, "My money won't pay for it."
Oh,
my God. That's just shocking. I feel like walking into the house and saying, "You are the biggest."
Please don't do that.
I mean, that's just shocking. I mean, I'm laughing.
He was
no getting the toilet. I couldn't imagine. I mean, people were getting toilets away back then.
Yeah. I mean, and the privy in the barn and the privy in the basement did both flush.
Yeah, there you go.
They did both flush. In one of the rooms upstairs, Bridget's room, in the closet, there is a water tank.
Yeah.
They flushed.
Right.
I take it there's never been like any clairvoyants or mediums or...
so many.
Right, so there's been quite a few.
Many in and out. We had one lady come in, and again, I wasn't there this day, but Leanne, who owns the house, told me about this woman who came in and insisted that, and this is kind of funny, I'm not sure how much I believe it, insisted that in the bathroom, in the staff bathroom on the first floor, was a portal. And they were getting in and out through the toilet.
Well,
and then she said she went home and she said the thing that comes in and out of the toilet looked like a gorilla. Wait, I'm not even done yet. Hang on, there's more. She said she went home and she wound up with a great big bruise on her leg in the shape of a gorilla, and that's how she knew that's a portal.
Oh. Well, it's weird you should say that, right? Like, I know what people in the chat are thinking of, right, because of this, but it's all. Let's face it, the house is built on a native burial ground, right? And then we go to our cryptid side of things, right? We're going to go to the cryptids now, guys, right? I mean, you get Bigfoot, right? And he's or she or whatever it is meant to be associated.
But what if it wasn't a gorilla? What if it was just a Native American with a bear skin or something on their back?
That's true.
What they wore.
That's a skinwalker.
A skinwalker or a Bigfoot. I mean,
I don't know, because I'm not sure if the Native Americans, and this is something, now you've got me curious, and I'm going to have a look and see. I'm not sure if the Native Americans in that area believed in skinwalkers as such.
Right.
So I'm going to go and check on that, because that's something I want to be able to say. What is it?
It could have just even been part of the clothing.
But it makes you wonder if it is a skinwalker, because that's the Native American Indians did dress up as like wolves and dress up as
Right.
bears and things.
Was that the Navajo? I'm not sure. I know there was one tribe in particular that dealt with the skinwalkers. I'm not sure if it was Navajo.
They're oh my gosh, I can't remember, but they're west. A fair bit west from us.
But it does make you wonder.
I'm saying us like I still live there.
Well, let's jump really quickly to the Bigfoot and stuff like that. I mean, Bigfoot stuff, right? Bigfoot, let's think about this here. They talk about it being a different dimension. They use different portals to transport. Being that area, being that land, what happens if it is Bigfoot? Or something like it. What do you think, Linda? What do you usually think?
I don't know.
I tend to think.
Don't know. That's why it's unknown.
I tend to think more that they're a solid creature. Yes. I do believe they can cloak. I believe they can make themselves invisible. But I believe them more to be a solid creature. So I'm not sure on that side of things. But I do know that there will be some sort of spiritual beings. They do manifest, but what there will be, I don't know. But for me, Bigfoot is a solid creature.
I'm just searching, Lizzie. I'm just going to. You keep talking about yourself.
You just don't know, don't you? There's a lot of people out there that believe that it could be different things, and who's to say till you see it yourself?
Yeah, there's all sorts of things out there.
Yeah, there are, and that the Freetown State Forest that we were discussing earlier, we have had sightings of everything that you can imagine. It's like, if it's paranormal, someone has seen it in the Freetown State Forest.
Right, it's a massive area, isn't it?
It's about 200 square miles, I believe.
Right.
What sort of cryptids have been seen?
Oh gosh, okay, so we have had sightings of Sasquatch, Bigfoot-like creatures. We've had ghosts or spirits. People have seen Native American spirits in the Freetown State Forest. We've had UFO sightings there. Or is it UAP now? Well? Is that the politically correct way of saying it? Is it UAP now?
I think it is, yes. They've changed it, yes.
Okay, so we've had UAP sightings there. Gosh, what else? And, with the rumors that well, it's not rumors because I actually saw them, but that there was a cult in that area working out of the forest. And that was a scary experience, running into them.
Right.
I bet it was.
I was in a car with some friends. Somebody had said, "Ooh, there's a really pretty waterfall in the forest. You guys should go check it out." And stupid us, we went because we were in high school, early college years. We were idiots, so we went. And as we were coming around this corner, and this is a dirt road, like in the middle of nowhere in this forest, and we actually did see a group of people, some wearing robes, some not, gathered around a very large fire. And then, again, as I say, idiots, because we screamed when we ran into them. And my friend had to back his car back down this little trail while they were coming after us.
God.
That must have been a scary experience.
It was...
When I search the Lizzie Borden House, my phone keeps freezing, which I find very unusual.
What's happening?
He's cursed
it keeps freezing.
He's cursed you for that word.
It's my phone keeps freezing every time I go to search the Lizzie Borden House on property, but I'll do it after when
you're not allowed to do it because you've got an advisor.
Because I've got maps and stuff. I'll go to a site where I can look up. But you're the one that's just called them, dude.
Well, let me know what happens when you get there.
I will. But it's
so. What happened then, Colleen? When she got back down the hill, did they leave you alone? These cult people.
Yeah, they weren't able to identify us. We weren't able to identify them. There was a fair distance between us and them when we started screaming. And my friend, the road back that he had to back down was very short. So they chased us, but we got away is the best way of putting it. which I'm not sorry about in the slightest, obviously.
I mean, what could they have done to you? Did they
Shell.
think
Hi,
they would have
everyone.
put these prisoner and things? Were they known for that in that area?
What is it, Drew?
Were they known for taking prisoners and things in that area?
No.
Right.
There were a couple of murders that were attributed to them that I don't think they had anything to do with.
Right.
But there were a couple that are attributed to them that I believe they did commit.
Right.
For various reasons.
Right.
So what has there been ever anything else happened on the area around that house? I mean, is there anything other strange things happened? And I'm not talking cryptids, UFOs, anything else?
I believe there was a UAP sighting near the house. I'm not 100% sure. I would have to call and ask the lady who used to manage the house, Leanne.
Yeah, because I have heard the UFO sightings or things like that have been found in really haunted location where there's energy, where there's a high presence of energy.
Yeah.
So it makes you wonder,
Yeah.
what a lot of people don't really know what UFOs are. I mean, they could
be
exactly.
Exactly.
You don't know.
Probably a certain type of energy
They might be using it.
There's
What about the houses
gentleman
next door? Are they haunted? Is there any more houses in the street that's haunted, or is it just the Borden House and next door?
We don't know.
Right.
We don't know.
Maybe they wouldn't like to share that anyway, the neighbours.
Yeah, it's not the kind of thing people will generally talk about unless they're us.
Right.
That's true.
We don't want nosy tourists wanting with a spirit box and a K2 coming to chat on their door.
It's fascinating. It is fascinating. You must admit.
I know, definitely.
I mean, I like the idea of the skinwalkers. I mean, that is I'm down the alley.
Really interested in that idea.
That's going down the alley dangerous if you really think about it, because they can destroy families. Ghosts are one thing. Demons are demons,
obviously,
but then
look what happened in the house.
What is that?
I says in the dad, because look what's happening in the house.
I'm really curious about the skinwalker theory now, and I'm going to see if I can get in touch with somebody from the local Native American tribe and ask them what their beliefs might be in regard to that. I can't guarantee that I'm going to get anywhere with it.
Right.
They may not want to talk.
That's right. It's a sort of secretive thing within the tribes sometimes, and they don't like to talk about it.
It makes you wonder, Dave, if you could maybe get like a shaman of some kind for that tribe, right? To go into the basement to see if you could maybe put it to rest or maybe help it.
Right.
Say, right, we're sorry, we shouldn't have built this house, it should never have been dug here, whatever the day.
Get an offer. The tribe an offer.
Aye.
We had a shaman come in. We didn't call him in, but he asked if he could come and investigate the house. He was in the process of making a documentary, which you can see, I think, on YouTube. It's called Afraid of Nothing. It's called Afraid of Nothing. I'm going to withhold my opinion about the documentary itself, but we did have him come in, and he did pick up on whatever it is, the elemental in the basement. He did pick up on that.
Right.
So it was kind of interesting. He didn't mention, and my thought was, as a shaman and a Native American, he would have mentioned, skinwalker if he had picked up on something like that, and he didn't. But that doesn't mean, to me, that doesn't necessarily mean it wasn't there.
It was just maybe hiding. It was maybe only comes out at night for all you know.
Right.
Certain energies.
Aye, it's.
But it's definitely now something y'all have me interested in trying to find out about.
I'd love to hear what you have to say on that, definitely, if you do find out.
I'll absolutely let you know.
It makes you wonder if you could maybe try and cross the spirits in that building.
I think they deserve a rest now, especially the father and the mother and things. I think they all deserve a rest.
Yeah, part of the problem is that, and we've had people come in and try that go into the light thing. You're free, you can go. Mr. Borden won't go.
Is it maybe stopping the rest of
them? He absolutely refuses. And I've heard this on Spirit Box over and over and over again. He refuses to go.
See, is he afraid of something?
He's afraid of going to hell.
See, that's...
I've heard it more than once. He's afraid of going to hell.
Well, there you go.
See, he wasn't very nice to his daughters. I mean, especially Lizzie. I mean,
this is the impression that I get. Yeah, that's the impression that I get. It was kind
of general, maybe.
Mm-hmm. But
did he have any sons? Was it that only the 2 daughters he had?
There were actually 3 daughters. In between Lizzie and Emma, there was a child named Alice Esther. Nice. She passed away very young. She passed away when she was about 2. Back then, water on the brain was a big thing. A lot of babies passed from it, and that's what Alice Esther passed from. There is rumor, there is even a book that Andrew Borden had an illegitimate son. I'm trying to remember the name of the book.
Borden.
Lizzie Borden, Past, Present, and Future, I think is what it was called.
I've read one book about it, but I don't think it was that one.
No, there is...
Let's see if I can find it, right?
Sure.
You talk amongst yourselves about the...
It makes you wonder, though, if there was maybe other illegitimate children out there that he had.
This is what this book is about.
Right.
This is what this particular book is about, that there was a child.
Right.
A male child who, that he had some kind of an affair.
Right.
With
the mother. It wouldn't really make it to the newspapers and things if they were so rich, because they would just pay people off.
Exactly. That's part of the gentleman's theory.
Right.
And I'm terrible. I can't remember the name of this book now. An hour from now, when I'm not sitting here under the gun, I'll be able to remember it. And
it makes you wonder if something like that even could have been making the murders. It could have been what caused the murder. Is the fact that that's somebody angry.
That is the premise, literally, that this book puts out, is that there was an illegitimate son who came to the house on the day before the murders, or on the day of the murders, and that he was asking for money, and Andrew wouldn't give him the money.
It's come up on Google. I'm using Google here, so it's come up. William Borden, right? Alleged illegitimate half-brother of Lizzie and Emma, committed the murders out of revenge after his father failed to submit to his extruded demands.
That's an interesting thing.
Yeah, and there's a gentleman who wrote a whole book about that theory. It is absolutely fascinating.
You could get a hold of that book and have a read at that.
I'm just looking
easily. For it, it's still out there.
So it's still in print. There's no problem getting it.
I don't think there should be any problem.
God, my phone keeps freezing every time I go to look this up. This is weird.
Well, he doesn't like you, Christopher.
You're being jinxed.
Yep.
Well, there's need to start paying better. That's what I'm going to say.
And these questions. These questions that we have, I've got a Facebook that I can post the answers to, or I can put it up on the Parachills, the Parachills thing, and Chris can tell you guys what the answers I come up with are. But it's you've given me something else to think about now.
There's a book here called The Trial of Lizzie Borden.
Yeah, that's a new one. I haven't read it yet.
Yeah, I've not read that one either.
I would try and get one of the older ones, because there's new theories every day.
Yeah, there are. Arnold Brown, I believe the author's name is Arnold Brown. I'm gonna pop over into Google. You guys talk for a minute.
You guys want to ask anything in chat?
Guys, would you like to ask any questions to MD, Linda, or Drew, or Colin, or anybody?
Any questions whatsoever?
You can ask anything you want.
Oh, there, Ron in. Hi, Ron.
Hey, Ron Weasley. How are you? Every time I say
He
that,
says,
I feel like
"Hi,
I'm gonna-
Master Chris."
Hi, Jill.
Every time I do that, I feel like I'm going in Harry Potter, you know, Ron
Oh,
Weasley.
Sissy's went to bed. Your Nellie's went to her bed.
Oh, good night. Have a lovely dreams. As long as you don't dream about the Lizzie
I've got the
Borden House, I'll be
cold,
fine.
guys.
Ken and my
Sniffling.
luck, I'll get dragged out my bed tonight or something like that. Pissed off guy.
You wake
Okay.
up in the morning with a big in your leg.
I'll throw a 2p on the floor and he'll run down the stairs for it.
Aye, Scottish outlook will be interesting.
I have an answer about the book.
Right.
It is by a man named Arnold Brown. It's called Lizzie Borden, The Truth. Wait a minute. Now let me look. I don't want The Legend, The Truth, The Final Chapter.
Right.
And it is still available as a mass market paperback for $6.44.
Well, that's quite
Right, I'll have to have a look for that then.
So it's a really interesting theory.
I'm going to look for that too.
It's not my theory, but it's a really interesting theory.
It's
What's
always
that?
good to learn different theories.
There were about a new 20 books. 20
This
books
William
really.
Borden that he talks about in the book was actually found hanged in, say it with me now, Freetown State Forest.
Really?
Right.
Freetown State Forest.
Supposedly there was a bottle of poison at his feet. So the theory is, did he do this to himself or did someone do it to him?
Right.
Because he committed the murders.
It makes you wonder.
It does, doesn't it?
All reaped in mysterious theories.
Yeah.
It could, for all we know, it could have been his mother. Who was his mother? What was his name? It's the stepson.
It would have been William Borden.
Right.
Who his
mother
was.
William's mother's name is unknown to me at this time.
Right.
Maybe need to read the book to remember.
Because
it's in the book.
It makes you wonder. I mean,
I know, it's another avenue.
Then again, did somebody murder him because he maybe knew too much?
Maybe.
It's crazy, isn't it? It is. Crazy.
And there are so many tangents you can go off on.
It's definite.
Do you think there's any been modern time police ever investigated it?
They have, as a matter of fact.
Have they?
They have. As a matter of fact, one of the detectives from the O.J. Simpson case
Really? Right.
came and did an investigation with a partner of his at the house.
Right. And
they did a forensic investigation.
Oh, now that's interesting. All these years later.
Yep, and they were trying to prove whether or not Lizzie could have committed the murders.
Right.
And what was their outcome?
I believe they came up with that she could have done it.
No.
But I also think that they didn't know quite enough about how trains worked back then and timing and things like that. You know, you have to pay attention to these really mundane things when you're investigating this.
It's not like nowadays when you get your car and drive to the local town.
Exactly. They could not do that then.
And they had horse and carriages and
horse and carriage, and even if you were going to take the train, you had to wait for the train.
And it was a steam train.
And it was a steam train, and it was not necessarily always on time.
Yep. They always broke down.
So there's just a lot to look at.
Yeah, for sure.
You definitely need to go back in there and do an investigation of the whole property.
I would love to. I've
interested to see just if you do see if it's changed or not, if there's more negative, positive, or it's not changed at all.
It would be interesting to find that out. Yeah.
Does no one stay in it full time? I take it's just kept as a museum kind of house.
Maybe better that way.
No one stays in it.
The former manager. Because the house is up for sale. So you'll hear me talk about the former manager a lot. Her name is Leanne Wilbur.
Right.
And she and I became very close friends. So I spent a lot of time there that wasn't necessarily work time.
Right.
You know, so I would stay there sometimes. In terms of if there are no overnight guests booked, the house will be empty.
Right.
If we have overnight guests booked, then there will be people in the house. The tour guides were technically only on the clock, the evening tour guides, until about 11 or so.
Right.
And then they would leave and the guests would be in the house.
Right.
Now, that's not something I ever did. When I did the overnights, I stayed.
Were you ever in there yourself?
Was I ever alone there?
Aye.
At night? Yes. Many, many, many times.
What was that like?
Many times. I loved it. I loved it. I
don't know. You could, nah.
I'm that weirdo girl who will walk around the house and wonder why the fire alarm is going off at 4 o'clock when there's nothing going on and no one else is in the house but me.
Right.
And that happened 3 or 4 times in 1 week.
Wow.
When I just happened to be hanging around and I would say, I'm going to sleep in the house tonight and stay, and it would be an amazing experience, or not.
Do you think it was Mr. Borden doing it to get rid of you?
I have had encounters with Mr. Borden when I was alone in the house, yes.
Yeah. Was it, did he deliberately set off the fire alarm and maybe get rid of you?
You know something? I don't think he's the one who was setting off the fire alarm.
Is it the kids?
I think it was something else.
Or are you thinking it's the darker
I think it was the other thing.
Right,
Yeah.
No letting you rest.
Wow. It's an amazing building.
Did the children want to play with you? The children
I did have
in the
experiences.
house.
I did have experiences with the children that were lovely, and they will come out and play. Now, one weird thing about that is they hang out predominantly in what we call the chimney room. It wasn't up in the attic. It wasn't a bedroom.
In the basement.
No, they don't like to go in the basement.
That's why it's away for the demon in the basement.
No.
But yeah, they hang around upstairs, and you can get them. You can interact with them. They're very sweet children, actually.
Here's an interesting question. Has there ever been any real live children went in?
Oh yes.
Has anything ever happened to them? Maybe you know what kids are like. They can see, some of us we can, and maybe they've seen the kids, and the kids have seen them, and they thought,
not that I've heard, but I wouldn't doubt it. And that's something that I can call Leanne about and ask.
Yes.
Yeah.
I should probably start making a list.
You should actually get
Leanne on.
You one night. We should get you back and maybe
get Leanne on.
Leanne with you to come on.
I will see if that's possible. Right now, it may not be, simply because of they're busy with getting the house ready for sale and that kind of thing.
I seen the for sale thing on the.
Yeah.
Was it 600,000 or something that went for it? $700,000. There you go. It's a bargain.
That's a nice big house, though.
That would be Maplecroft.
Right. So that's
Maplecroft initially sold. Now it's up. Maplecroft is up for sale again, but the 92 2nd Street house where the murders occurred went for, or is going for, a bit more than that.
Right.
It's a nice big house. So, I mean, it's a nice big house.
And I do want to be a little bit careful about what I say, because the sale is pending, and I really don't want to get involved in that part of it.
Don't say no more. Don't say any more.
Yeah.
It's hopefully.
Don't think we're getting millionaires in chat want to go and muck up the sale. I used to buy it.
You might buy it and then donate it to you.
I would love to buy it. I would love to buy it.
Good settings.
It's your phone there. Right. Anyway, it'd be nice. Can you imagine owning the house like that? Can you imagine owning that place?
I can.
Mr. Borden, can you imagine what Mr. Borden would say? He'd be like, "Oh no, she's went and bought the house.
She's back." No, actually, Mr. Borden and I came to an understanding the day after my second day of work. I simply marched into the house, and there was a portrait of him in the family room. And I stood in front of that portrait, and I was like, you know what? I'm not going anywhere. This is my dream job. I'm not going anywhere. So let's learn to coexist. And I said, I will never, ever use that word to describe you again. And after that, it wasn't too bad. I had minor experiences with him, but nothing like that first day when You know, I just let him know.
So, Drew, Linda, have you got any questions you would like to ask Colleen before we?
No, I think I've asked everything.
Is it?
Same here, yes.
It's been a really good night tonight. Honestly, it has been a really good night tonight.
Been really enjoyable.
We'll need to have you all back again for a.
Yes, and I'll think of more questions next time because I'll probably go for this and I'll think about 1,000 questions.
Fair enough.
It'll just pop into your head. It'll just pop into your head, but hopefully you'll maybe get there for an investigation. I'd like to get there for an investigation.
Oh, so would I. I would love to go back and do it.
I mean, honestly, it's one of the iconic buildings.
It is. Yeah.
It's like, what was it? The Amityville Horror. I mean, the Amityville House, right?
See, that would be good to investigate.
I don't think he's ever investigated.
No, they don't let people in there. That's another one of the private tenant houses. They don't let people in.
It's always up for rent, seemingly, what I've heard.
I know. So an investigator needs to buy it to open it up. They did the Conjure House.
That's very true.
The Conjure House.
But
you could do that with the Amityville House.
See, the thing is with the Edinburgh Lane Warren thing, they were real people and they did real things, but then the movies took over and the movies.
Yeah.
I think the Conjuring, I think the first 2 minutes was real and the rest was.
But they've got their own YouTube channel and their own investigations.
You've got that guy.
Yeah.
It's the son-in-law, I think, isn't it?
The son-in-law. He used to do a YouTube channel.
No, I'm talking about the Conjure House. The Conjure House have got their own big thing where they let investigators in.
All right.
And that's in Rhode Island. I believe that's in Rhode Island. I can't remember where.
It's hopefully we can do another show soon, and hopefully we get back on Parachills. You know, there's when are you live next, Drew? Do you want to tell the chat?
I am live on Thursday night for my birthday, guys. I am going to do tarot cards. And I'll get some guests in at random to
That'll
say
be you
hello.
21. That'll be you 21.
Yes, I will be 21 at 38 years. I'll be 49, guys.
Also, guys, if you're into aliens or anything strange from the sky or the sea, please tune into Parachills, The Disclosure. What is it? The UAP talk show in the 6th. So that'll be this Thursday coming with Chris
and
the gang. You know, you don't know, a big spaceship might land outside your house. The guy might come out to you, big suckers on his feet. You know. Yeah. But anyway, guys, thank you.
What baby me won't use no Parachills.
And it's been lovely to talk to you, Colleen.
I'll be there for Beth.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's been great.
Yes. Honestly, I'll speak to you after I end this, right, guys, in the chat. Thank you very much for coming. And hopefully we'll get another live through the week sometime. Maybe do a live in my car or something, talk to you all. So, catch you later, guys.
Goodbye, folks.